About a month ago, I made a video about Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. I loved that game growing up because it wasn't just a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game simulator, but it was a charming JRPG that was just as much about the story and the characters as it was about the cards. And that's something I feel Yu-Gi-Oh! Games have lost over the years, as the newer ones started to focus more on emulating the real-life card game. Sacred Cards is often regarded as one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! RPGs, but it's also a really easy game once you learn the quirks and get the best cards. And I've always wished that there was a mod or something that would make the game harder. Well, I guess the game developers felt the same way, because the sequel, Reshef of Destruction, has a reputation for being one of the hardest Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games ever. This game does not pull punches, and you can't just cheese your way through it by getting the best cards, because even acquiring cards in this game is so much harder. But is this game actually that difficult, or is it just a bunch of third-rate duelists with fourth-rate decks who suffer from skill issues? I've played the Sacred Cards dozens of times, so I'm quite familiar with how the game works, but I've never played its sequel. So that's the question I'm going to be answering today. But I'm not just going to be simply beating the game, I'm also going to be getting every achievement in this game using retro achievements. A platform that adds achievement support to all of your favorite classic games using the power of emulators and modern technology. There are 50 achievements in total to collect, and I'll be getting every single one of them. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nostalgic Juice. I'm on a quest to play all of the classic nostalgic games from my childhood and get their achievements. So if you like achievement hunting videos just like this, then make sure you subscribe because I'm uploading one every single week. With that said, sit back, grab yourself a snack because we have a long journey ahead of us. Just like the Sacred Cards, we begin in our room, but things already look a bit different. Our little hero ditched his iconic orange hat, and it looks like they tried to write Joey with his anime Brooklyn accent. Now I put this monster card in here. I will say I'm not a fan of these little windows with the characters in this game. I much preferred Sacred Card sprites that took up more of the screen. There is a little more animation between dialogues though, so that's pretty cute. I guess it's not a huge deal, just a small little nitpick. Yugi comes bursting into the room and tells us that his Millennium Puzzle, along with the spirit of the pharaoh who lives inside of it, have disappeared overnight. I won't stop looking for my dearest friend? Damn, Yugi, Joey is standing right there. I guess Joey really is second rate. We head to the town center and meet up with Taya and explain the situation. Lurking in the shadows, eavesdropping, is a Shizu who tells us that we need to save the world from Reshef, the Dark Being. So much for "we shall never again appear before you." It turns out her Millennium Necklace, along with the rest of the Millennium items, are also missing, and this Reshef guy is the culprit. Someone fused together the 3 Egyptian god cards which help release him into the world, as well as drain the power of the god cards and turn them into stone. And the Shizu, I'm just saying this wouldn't have happened if you would just let me hold on to the god cards after the last game. So now we're tasked with finding the Millennium items that have been scattered across the world so we can use them to restore power to the Egyptian gods so we can defeat the Dark Being and save the world. Honestly, it's pretty cool that this game has its own separate story. Unlike the Sacred Cards, which follow the anime's plot, this game's going its own direction, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing this story for the first time. Taking a look at our starting deck, I think I owe Sacred Cards an apology. This deck is absolute trash. The only good cards in here are Beckon to Darkness, a spell card that destroys one monster on the opponent's field, and maybe Ichiban in the early game. It's a battle phase trap, which if you remember from my last video, are very important. But this one only works on monsters with under 1,000 attack points, so it's not going to be useful for very long. I decided to duel a random NPC just to get a feel for things, and I need to complain about something. I hate this stupid scanning mechanic that happens every single time an action is done. One thing I loved about Sacred Cards is how streamlined and how quick the duels were. In the Yu-Gi-Oh games where you follow the actual rules, one thing that I hate is how long things take due to the multiple phases and menus. With the Sacred Cards, duels are a lot more fluid and fast-paced because they got rid of all the phases and stuff like trap cards will happen automatically, so the game isn't constantly interrupting you with the menu. Reshef still plays like this for the most part, but this stupid card scanning thing really slows things down and I just have to vent about it. Gameplay wise, things are the same as the last game pretty much. I'll go over the basics really quick in case this is your first time seeing a Yu-Gi-Oh game. In a duel, both players have 8,000 life points. The goal is to reduce your opponent's life points down to 0. You do this by summoning monster cards. Monsters have attack and defense point values, and when 2 monsters battle, the one with more points wins. You can play one monster per turn as long as it's level 4 or lower, anything higher than that, and you'll have to tribute monsters on your field to summon them. Monsters also have types, and there is a type advantage mechanic, and if one monster has the type advantage, such as water versus fire, that monster wins the battle automatically regardless of attack points. And finally, there are spell cards which all have useful effects like powering up a monster or destroying cards on the field, and then there are also trap cards which you play face down on the field, and those are triggered by an opponent's action such as attacking or playing a specific card. That about covers the basics. The strategy does get more complex as the game progresses and as you discover new cards, but we'll talk about the more advanced stuff when it's relevant. These starting NPCs are absolutely no challenge at all, their cards are weak and we can beat them easily. However, this game quickly ramps up the difficulty the moment you start dueling any main character. For our first achievement, we have to beat Rebecca, who we can find at Kaiba Corp trying to challenge Kaiba to a duel. Kaiba of course has better things to do than duel children, so he tells her to duel us instead. If we progress the game past the first area, this duel becomes unavailable, so we can only do it now at the beginning with our low level cards. And she's already summoning pretty strong cards compared to what we have. I managed to hold on for a little bit by using type advantages, but her deck also has a variety of different types, so it's not like we can just build a deck of low level monsters with a specific type to counter her. Pretty much all of her cards have between 800 and 1000 attack points, and nothing in our deck is strong enough to take them down, so we end up losing our first duel of the run right at the beginning here. So in order to stand a chance of beating her, we have to improve our deck, but that turned out to be a lot harder than I expected. We have access to the card shop, which in this game is Yugi's grandpa's shop, but don't let this seemingly charming old grandpa fool you, he is a straight up scalper. Cards in this game are so much more expensive than they were in the previous game, and we can't afford anything good right now. We don't even get all that much for winning against these low-level NPCs, so we can't really utilize the card shop at this point. Even the password machine cost 1000 Domino to use, and that's just to get a card into the shop. We still have to buy it afterwards. You might think we can just sell some cards to make a quick buck, but no, in this game, you cannot sell a card that you only have one copy of, even if you don't ever plan on using it. So that means we can only sell duplicate cards, and we don't have any of those right now. So to get some better cards, we're gonna have to duel for them. Each duel you can offer up an ante, and if you win, you get a card from your opponent. The regular NPCs can only be dueled once though, so we can't really farm them for easy wins, but we do have a few opponents that we can duel as many times as we want. Tristan is the easiest, his deck is on par with the average low level NPC, so it's pretty much a guaranteed win, but the rewards are abysmal. A whopping 6 Domino, and cards that are pretty much useless. We can duel against Joey and Yugi inside the card shop, but they're just as strong as Rebecca. I managed to defeat Joey once and I got 58 Domino and a much better card, but I only won that because I got really lucky and was able to get a strong monster out with 2 tributes. I wouldn't have been able to do this consistently. So that just leaves Duke Devlin. He's more difficult than the average NPC, but not impossible to beat. He uses a variety of different cards, so we can't really build a deck to counter him, and all of his monsters are in the 700 attack point range. But we do have a few cards in our starting deck that can beat them, or at least match them to buy us time for a tribute summon. The issue is, he actually has other good cards like Heavy Storm, which in this game destroys all cards on the field, not just spells and traps like in the real game. He also uses Hourglass of Life, which lets him pay 1000 life points to give all of his monsters a 500 attack point buff. It is a light type monster, so we do have a few cards in the starting deck that can counter it if we're lucky, but if we don't have those, we probably aren't winning that duel. And each time we lose, we're losing a card that we had to put up as ante. We can't just ante up any garbage card either, it has to be at least 500 attack points so we can get good cards for winning. And just like selling cards, we can't ante up a card if we only have one copy of it. So before dueling Duke, I needed to duel every other NPC I could to try and strengthen my deck to win more consistently. If we get down to only one card left to offer as ante, I can just reset the game if I'm about to lose, but that's annoying to do since we'll have to run all the way back home to save the game after every win, so I don't want to have to do that if I can avoid it. The good news is that the cards we win off Duke are actually decent, so every time we win, we're adding another 700 attack point monster to the deck and replacing one of the weaker ones, so each win gets a little bit easier each time. I even managed to win an Hourglass of Life off him, which is a fantastic card. If you don't remember what it does, you pay 1000 life points to power up all your... Wait, what? Why did I lose here? I know I was behind in this duel, but it just started. Surely I didn't lose 7000 life points already. I figured I must have just misplayed and I didn't think much of it, but I kept noticing that as I dueled Duke, I often found myself with less life points than I thought that I should have. He even beat me on the second turn one time, and I knew something was up. And guess what I learned about this game that I had no idea was a thing? As if they didn't make this game hard enough, they also changed it so your life points do not reset back to 8,000 between duels. If you look at your status page, you can see that your life points are whatever they were when your last duel ended. So if you start another duel, that's the life points that you're starting with. To refill your life points, you have to go home and save the game. Everyone on my last video was telling me this game was hard, but raw damn, I did not realize it would be this hard. Another fun thing that I learned is there's a card called Inexperienced Spy that Duke uses, which reveals the cards in your hand. I always thought this card wasn't good, but in this game, cards need to be face down to use their effects. So if I have a card like Hourglass of Life and it's revealed by the effect of a card like the Inexperienced Spy, that means I cannot use the effect, so that's another fun little trick up Duke's sleeve. Eventually, while farming Duke, I learned that we can cheese wins by decking him out. He runs no high level monsters to tribute summon, and none of his monsters are above 700 attack points. So if I throw something down with at least 700 defense points, there's not much he can do. He can destroy monsters with type advantage, but the AI in this game won't replace monsters on their field, so if he already has 5 monsters clogging up his field and none of them have the type advantage, then we can simply wait it out until he loses. Of course, this takes forever with this stupid card scanning thing, but that's the nice thing about using emulators, we can actually fast forward through these annoying bits. After about a dozen more duels, I managed to get a second copy of Hourglass of Life, and I picked up Witch's Apprentice from the shop, which is a pretty good card in Sacred Cards, so I thought it'd be a good card to buy here. But little did I know, they absolutely ruined this card. Remember that stupid card scanning thing that I was complaining about earlier? Well, it turns out if you have a card with a permanent effect like Witch's Apprentice who gives all shadow monsters plus 500 attack and defense points, every single time the scanning animation happens, it recaps the effects of that card. I am not exaggerating when I say this is genuinely the absolute worst game design I have ever seen. I have no clue how this made it past playtesting. This is such a downgrade from the previous game. And Witch's Apprentice is still a really good card, especially right now when I don't have many other good cards to work with. So I'm still going to use this, but this would seriously make me put down the game if I was playing this on original hardware, so now I'm kind of glad I never got around to playing this when I was younger. I picked up 2 copies of Darkest Approaches, a useful spell card that lets us reuse monster effects, and I've gradually been replacing weak monsters with stronger ones as I got them, so I feel I was ready to take on Rebecca for a rematch. It took a few more attempts, but eventually I got a really good starting hand with Hourglass of Life. I used Dark Piercing Light, which reveals face down cards so I know what I'm dealing with. I didn't want to use the Hourglass just yet until I had more monsters so I can maximize its effectiveness, so I set down Genin in defense mode, hoping his 900 defense points would keep him alive so I can tribute him. And it did, so next turn I tributed him for Tatsunudo, and I went on the offensive. Rebecca had to start putting monsters in defense mode, and I was able to take care of them both on the following turn. Now that I have her on the ropes, I threw down Hourglass of Life and buffed my field and started chipping away at her life points. And that's all it took. With the field full of buffed monsters, we managed to finally defeat Rebecca, and we won Sangan as a prize card, which I was very happy about because we are so desperate for good monsters. I'm like 2 hours into the game at this point, and we finally defeated a small child, so I can't wait to see how much harder the game gets from here. Now that that's finally done, we can progress the game, so I headed to the train station to board the Duel Express. But first we have to do a tag duel against the conductors. And this sounded like a lot of fun, but sadly the game's just lying to us. Even though it makes us pick a partner, this was not a tag duel, it's just a regular NPC duel, and I guess Yugi was fighting his guy off screen. This was a huge letdown. I honestly am starting to feel a little bait and switched. Don't call it a tag duel and then give me the option to pick a partner if it's just a regular NPC duel. Before boarding the train, I wanted to upgrade my deck a little bit more. Normally when I play Sacred Cards, I don't like to use the password machine, it's more fun for me to just work with what you're given, but in this game, I'm using every tool at my disposal. And it's not like I can really utilize this much anyway since each password costs 1000 Domino, and again, that's just to get the card into the shop, we still have to buy it afterwards. So most cards are still inaccessible to me right now. But I did pick up 2 Bear Trap cards, which will destroy any attacking monster under 1500 attack points. Battle traps like this are super important for protecting monsters so you can tribute them, so I wanted to make sure I had at least a few of them. As we board the train, we're followed by this guy, and hold on, wait a minute, why doesn't he have to duel them to get on the train? What kind of security is this? On the Duel Express, we have another missable achievement we have to look out for, and that's for defeating every opponent on the train. And we'll be riding this train a few times throughout the game, and we have to make sure that we defeat all opponents each time for this one. The duelists in the first car are pretty easy, but one of them managed to get me down to 3,000 life points, and we can't go home to save at this point, so these are all the life points we have to work with. And of course, at this moment, we get our first boss fight against Panic in the next train car. I will say though, it's really cool he's in the game. He's a character from the anime back in the Duelist Kingdom arc, and he was a one-off antagonist so that Yugi can teach the kids that being a bully is wrong. So it's really cool to see this game rework him into this story. The duel was actually a pretty easy win too. He uses a field spell to boost dark monsters, but some of mine get boosted too. And I was even able to summon my strongest card, which is boosted to over 3,000 attack points. So it wasn't long before Panic was taken out. After the duel, we arrived at the Egypt exhibit. I got an achievement for that, but before we leave, we gotta head to the back of the train to duel 2 more opponents. First is this little girl who is not very enthusiastic about it, and then we have to beat her dad, and I was expecting just another NPC duel, but of course the game has to throw out random bumps of difficulty at every opportunity. This guy consistently is summoning monsters with 1,000 attack points. I managed to get past a few of them with type advantage, but it wasn't long before he started to overwhelm me. Eventually I had to do a desperate play and activate Final Destiny, which wipes all cards from the field and hands. And of course he draws into a monster with 800 attack points. So again, I'm stuck not being able to do anything. I was so desperate to find a way to win this because losing means I have to reduel everybody on the train. I did have one small glimmer of hope when he tributed his monsters for a Mikazukuno, and in a true Heart of the Cards moment, I drew the one out I had to this, Beckon to Darkness. I just have to hope that he doesn't summon another strong monster on the next turn, and of course he does. Man, this guy ended up being harder than Panic, might as well make him the bad guy. At this point in the game, I was pretty much stuck. I made a few more attempts, but I could not come close to beating this random guy, and I even lost to Panic about half the times I kept reattempting these duels. So I went back to town to do some more grinding. There's a duel computer here who I defeated on the easy difficulty for an achievement. That duel was incredibly easy, almost easier than the random NPCs, so not only do we get an achievement, but we can grind this computer again and again and get cards that we can sell for some Domino. I tried beating it on the advanced difficulty, and oh my god card, was it a huge spike in difficulty. We need to defeat the computer on all 3 difficulties eventually for some achievements, but we're gonna have to come back to them later. At least now though, I can pretty consistently win against Yugi and Joey, and they do give some better cards. I even got the 5 Exodia pieces off of Yugi, and while I don't intend to run an Exodia deck, at least the head is another strong monster. But the issue is, I can't actually use these cards because my duelist level is too low. You would think with all the grinding I've been doing my level would be higher, but of course it isn't, because while in the sacred cards you got +3 duelist level per win, in this game you get like a fraction of a duelist level for every win. And just a reminder, we do have an achievement for getting to duelist level 500, so I'm really hoping there's going to be a better way to increase this later. When it comes to RPG games, I usually hate grinding and trying to overlevel myself too much. I think it's more fun when you have to struggle a little bit and get creative in order to win. But I'm seriously at like 5 hours of gameplay by this point, and I haven't even progressed to the first area yet. It's not like I'm inexperienced, I'm pretty familiar with the sacred cards and Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole, but this game just simply does not give you the resources you need to win without having to do some insane amounts of grinding. The only thing I love about this game so far that's keeping me going is the story, which is actually really nice despite me barely getting to see it so far. And I do want to see where the story goes, so if grinding for hours is what it's going to take, then that's what I'm going to do. The duel train is actually a pretty decent place to grind as well. I can defeat the 3 duelists in the first train card pretty easily, and each of them give around 50 Domino plus a card that I can sell. Panic is like a 50-50 chance of me winning, and he does give 100 Domino and a card. And then the little girl in the third car is easy too. So that's like 250 or 350 Domino each attempt, plus like 3 to 5 cards, which we can sell for maybe another 150, 200 Domino. Even if I ante up a card against the rich dad and still lose, we're still making decent profit each time, and we're getting more cards than we lose, so I'm not gonna run out of antes. So I grinded this for about as long as it took for me to eventually beat the rich dad thanks to sheer dumb luck. And after grinding enough to add a third bear trap and a copy of Invisible Wire to the deck, eventually the stars aligned and I finally beat him. So far, our biggest obstacles in this run have been a child and a random guy, so I can't wait to see what the next challenge is. Maybe it's gonna be the dog outside the card shop. I honestly wouldn't be surprised at this point. At the Egypt exhibit, we see Panic once again, and he pushes past these guys who make absolutely zero attempt to stop him. We follow him into the basement where he's taken out by this guy who turns out to be a Millennium Guardian, who's trying to protect the Millennium items, except he'll give it to us if we beat him in a duel, so I guess that's an interesting way to do security, I guess. This is a good time to mention I only have like 1,000 life points left from my last duel against that rich dad, so yeah, we obviously lost that one. It works out though, because we actually have to ride the train a second time to duel one more person. So I beat him once outside the train, which happens to get us another achievement for reaching duelist level 125, and then we beat him once again on the train to make progress towards another achievement for beating everybody on the trains. We also got Anti-Regeki as a prize card, which is a card that's sole purpose is to counter one specific card. Can't imagine that ever being useful. Heading back to the exhibit, we rematch against the Millennium Guardian, and this time I not only have full life points, but I opened with Hourglass of Life, and I was not taking chances, so I used Darkness Approaches to reuse the effect and get a double buff. And that's all it took to defeat him. He calls us clumsy and unrefined, but like, I beat you, man, so what does that say about your skills? He gives us the Millennium Necklace as promised, and that triggers Yugi to have a vision of the destruction that Reshef the Dark Being will bring into the world. On our way back to Ishizu, we encounter the Kaiba brothers and learn that Ishizu has also asked him to recover the god cards, and let's just say he's less than thrilled about the prospect of teaming up. So he takes off and we head back to Ishizu to find out where our next Millennium item is, but not before we're interrupted by another bad guy, the Puppeteer of Doom, who doesn't want us interfering with Master Shavalsky's plans. I have no idea who that is, but before I can ask him, he challenges us to a duel. And this duel was incredibly easy. Or it was incredibly hard. Honestly, I couldn't tell. I just camped behind trap cards the entire time. He didn't even get an attack in. After defeating him, he gives us a video card, and Yugi suggests to put it in our dual disc, but like, no, I'm not just gonna stick a random USB into my dual disc computer that was given to us by a cartoon villain. Oh, well, never mind then, as long as it looks safe. I didn't realize Yugi has the Millennium antivirus. We learn that Sol Shavalsky is the guy on the cover of the game, and he is the one who is trying to resurrect Reshef the Dark Being. So now we know who our big bad of the game is. Ishizu senses that the next Millennium item is at the Domino Pier, so we add one more achievement for that discovery, and then head out to go find it. At the pier, we see these two lovebirds on a date, which is a really cute callback because these two were at the aquarium back in the first game and we had to duel them to get to Mako, so it's nice to see that they're still together. But we had to humble him a little bit because he was just a little too cocky. And oh great, he also has a monster with a permanent effect. Oh yeah, this is just some quality gameplay right here. I'm sure glad they designed it this way. It's like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Except instead of watching a guy play solitaire for 20 minutes, we get to see this. Inside the cruise ship, we see Jean-Claude Magnum continuing his quest to win Mai over by defeating her at a card game. And so we gotta, oh wait a minute, is this a casino?
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it!
A duel? What's that? Can I win money? No? Well then what's the point? How can you be into a game with no cash at stake? I think they need to cut this guy off. He's out here trying to bet on Yu-Gi-Oh games. After defeating Jean-Claude in a pretty straightforward duel, we head to the ship's cargo hold to face off against another Millennium Guardian for the next item. And he swiftly kicked my ass because he has better cards than me. And I am so sick of losing duels, so I went back and I grinded harder than I've ever grinded before. Now that my duelist level is a bit higher, I can actually start using the cards I win off Joey, so I dueled him until I got 3 copies of Baby Dragon, who's a pretty strong monster compared to what I have at the moment, and I also got a copy of Time Wizard, whose effect turns Baby Dragon into Thousand Dragon for free. So now we actually have a bit of a combo play in this deck. I also got 2 Flame Swordsmen just to get a good single tribute monster that's stronger than what I currently have, and then I also dueled Duke a bunch of times hoping to get a 3rd Hourglass of Life, but didn't end up getting one. But I did get a bunch of duplicate cards I can sell, and now that I have some money to work with, I picked up a few more cards from the shop. I got Trap Master, who has a really useful effect to set Acid Trap Hold to the field, which destroys attacking monsters. Then I got a Toadmaster, whose effect lets him summon a Frog the Jam to the field, who is just a regular 700 attack point monster, but it is tribute fodder for the higher level monsters. And I also picked up a 2nd copy of Invisible Wire, and a 3rd copy of Darkness Approaches. With my deck upgraded, I went back to go take on that Millennium Guardian, and I was feeling so confident I even challenged Mai to a duel, and she absolutely obliterated me. Not even the battle phase trap cards work because she has Harpy's Feather Duster, which destroys all my trap cards. But at least the Millennium Guard guy went down super easy now that I have some decent cards. He gives us the Millennium Key, and we're visited by the spirit of Shadi, the former owner of the Millennium Key, who tells us the Millennium items will help guide us, which, like, dude, we know, that's why we're collecting them. Honestly, kind of a dumb interaction, but it is nice to see some more anime characters. We head back to Ishizu, and now that we have 2 Millennium items, that's enough to free the first Egyptian god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon. Ishizu says that the gods picked their duelist and Slifer picked Yugi, but Yugi says he doesn't want it and tells her to give it to us instead. So I guess the gods don't get to pick their duelist, but I mean, hey, I'm not complaining, I'll take any good card I can get. Ishizu tells us that the next Millennium item is in Italy, so now we finally have an answer to the question,
why are we in Venice?
And we also got 2 more achievements, one for getting Slifer and one for progressing the story. In Italy, we see a familiar face from the last game, Bones, who I guess is working as a tour guide in these catacombs now. I thought this was like a bit and he was gonna lead us into a trap or something, but no, he genuinely works here now. Honestly though, I can't blame him. The card shop prices are insane. I wish I can get a job in this game so I can actually buy some good cards. We have to duel him for some information, and he summoned a strong monster right off the bat. But thankfully I have Beckon to Darkness as well as multiple battle traps to buy me some time until I can get to my Flame Swordsman. Normally that would be enough to win, but of course the duels are starting to get a little harder, and he has spell cards like Violet Crystal to power up his monster to 2000 attack points, and he destroys my Flame Swordsman. Unfortunately I couldn't do anything after that, so I had to go on the defense. I thought I was in the clear when I drew another Invisible Wire trap card, but Bones was 2 steps ahead of me and activates a second Violet Crystal, which powers up his monster again, this time bringing him over 2000 attack points, and Invisible Wire only works on monsters with 2000 or less attack points. Thankfully on my next turn, I drew into Hourglass of Life, which has type advantage against his buffed up monster. I activated its effect and then hoped that Invisible Wire would protect it until the next turn, and it did because Bones decided to drop his ace card Pumpkin King, which only has 1800 attack points. And thank Ra too, because that's another one of those permanent effect monster cards, so I did not want it on the field. I got a second Hourglass of Life on the field, and at that point I was back in control of the duel and was able to defeat him shortly after. After the duel we get an encounter with another few returning antagonists from the previous game. Bandit Keith, who is now the leader of the Neo-Ghouls after Merrick's defeat, joined by Strings, Seeker, and Arcana, and he tells us that the Neo-Ghouls are also after the Millennium items and the God cards. Honestly though, good for him. Bandit Keith was an absolute mess after the last game, so I'm glad to see him back on his feet. His strategy kinda sucks though. He tells us that we're not gonna find what we're looking for here, and I guess he just expects that to work because then they all leave without even challenging us to a duel. Then Bones tells us there's a secret area in the back where we encounter the next Millennium Guardian. With the starting hand of Hourglass of Life and 2 Invisible Wires, I made quick work of him and we got the Millennium Ring, as well as a visit from the memory of Bakura, who again doesn't really tell us anything we don't already know. I'm starting to think this is just fan service for people who like these characters. Before talking to Ishizu to move on with the story, we actually have a side quest to start. First, we have to rematch Mai. I had a decent starting hand with Sangan and Invisible Wire, and I thought it'd be a good idea to tribute him for a stronger monster, but Mai also runs battle traps and uses Amazon as archers to power down my monster. However, I did notice in the last duel that Mai runs primarily wind-type monsters, which just so happens to be weak to forest-type monsters, and I have a wind cleaver, so I'm able to buy myself a few turns with him and prevent her from summoning any big monsters. And eventually I drew into Baby Dragon, who is also boosted by this field spell that she uses, and that was enough to seal the deal. Now that we beat Mai, we can start a side quest where Tristan and Duke are battling it out to impress Joey's sister, Serenity. Apparently they have some sort of agreement, whoever wins in a duel gets to date her. First Jean-Claude Magnum and now these guys, what is with people in this game thinking they can coerce people into relationships by playing Yu-Gi-Oh? Serenity mentions that she looks up to Mai Valentine, so Duke and Tristan run off to go challenge her to a duel thinking that will win her over. Back at the cruise ship, we can see Mai working these two like dogs, yelling at them, barking orders, calling them names, degrading them, and these two are complaining as if this isn't the dream of every Yu-Gi-Oh player in the world.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
So these two cowards run off to go train somewhere else, so we gotta follow them to Kaiba Corp where they're practicing against the duel computer, who assesses their duelist level and gives them the rank of both idiots. Man, that computer really was built by Kaiba. This quest ends back at the card shop where Serenity reveals she doesn't even have an interest in duelists, it's just a coincidence that everybody she hangs out with happens to be a strong duelist. So she's not even interested in either of these guys, and this was a big ol' waste of time. But this does open up another side quest that we'll have to do later for an achievement. Now that we're done with all of that, Ashizu tells us where we can find the next Millennium item, so another achievement for the story progression, and we're off to China. When we get there, we encounter the Paradox Brothers, and we get another fake tag duel, this time with Kaiba as a partner. I opened with Invisible Wire and was able to protect my monster to bring out Flame Swordsman on the second turn, and that's all it took to defeat him. All of our grinding is starting to pay off now because we're actually winning duels pretty consistently now that we have some decent cards. After the duel, Mokuba lets it slip that Kaiba only came here to warn us about the Neo Ghouls. Turns out he does care about us after all. We face our next Millennium Guardian, who I was able to beat pretty easily. These guys honestly aren't as difficult as the other main duelists that we face in this game. They do have some strong monsters, but as long as I get a good opening hand, it's no issue. He gives us the Millennium Eye, but this time, instead of a memory of Pegasus like I was expecting, we get a memory from Sol Shavasky himself. He says the name Pegasus brings back some memories, but that he's been reborn, and then he disappears. So it looks like Pegasus is somehow involved in this story. We report back to Ashizu and now have enough Millennium items to revive Obelisk the Tormentor, who chooses Kaiba as his owner. So all that work and we don't even get a new god card to play with. But speaking of Kaiba, Tristan walks in and tells us about a show going on in Kaiba Land and invites us to go check it out. And you know, I think we earned a little break, so we're gonna go check that out. But first I headed back to Italy to duel Jean-Claude Magnum a second time, who just got a fortune from Bones that if he wins 3 duels, Mai will marry him. So of course we gotta put a stop to that. But this does activate another side quest that we're gonna get into in a little bit. For now, we can go back and enjoy the Kaiba Land show where we see the members of the Big Five in a staged kidnapping of Serenity. These were the bad guys of the virtual arc in the anime, so seeing them groveling for their jobs back, only to have to resort to entertaining children is a pretty fitting end for them. We defeat them in a duel to save Serenity, after which they fuse into the 5-headed dragon and are slain by the hero of the show, Kaiba Man, and his Master of Dragon Soldier to save the day. After that fun little show, we can take on another side quest where Taya is sad that she also got her fortune told by Bones, and he said that she would have bad luck with men. And he wasn't wrong because in walks in Johnny Steps, another one-off anime antagonist who's here to hit on Taya. She asked us to duel him to get rid of him, so that's exactly what we do. And he's not really easy either. I did end up losing to him once, but eventually managed to defeat him with a good starting hand. After he leaves, immediately another guy walks in. This time it's the Penguin who wants Taya to come work for him. This guy literally takes over her body in the anime, so she's not exactly thrilled about the prospect of working with him. And he was pretty tough too, even with a good starting hand, he was still able to beat us thanks to his field spell. And losing one duel here means we do have to replay both of them. I was eventually able to get the win, and it wasn't too bad having to replay them because Johnny did drop some strong monsters, but it's clear that we're probably gonna have to do some more grinding soon. But after defeating these two, Taya goes to hide at the card shop for a bit, and we get another achievement for completing the side quest. Now we can get back to the main story, and Ishizu tells us where to go for the next item, so that's one more achievement for story progression, and then we're off to Canada. But before we move on, it's time to do some more mindless grinding. So I dueled Yugi a bunch of times because he drops the Exodia pieces, which sell for more Domino than what most people are dropping. And after selling like 10 of each of them, I had enough Domino for a few more cards. I picked up Ancient Lamp, who can summon a Lajin for free, and that makes him our strongest monster that we can summon without tributes at 1800 attack points. I got Pot of Greed, which lets us draw 2 cards, so it adds a little bit of consistency to the deck. I got a third copy of Hourglass of Life since Duke still isn't dropping one, and then I got a third Beckon to Darkness along with a Petite Moth, who looks weak, but if we can keep it alive for a few turns, it'll eventually transform into the perfectly ultimate Great Moth, so it combos nicely with all the other battle traps that we're running. And finally, I picked up 2 red potions just to have some way to gain life points back, which is a lot more useful in this game now that they don't reset every duel. With the deck upgraded, we head to Canada where we meet Rex inside this cave, and just like Bones, we have to duel him for some more information. And this is when I realized that these Ikebon trap cards are no longer useful because everything he's summoning is over 1000 attack points, and these don't work on anything stronger than that. And despite upgrading my deck, I still lost to him the first time, but was able to defeat him on the rematch. I just hope this isn't foreshadowing even more grinding that I'm gonna have to do. After defeating Rex, he tells us there's something weird deeper in the cave, so we go check it out and discover that the weird thing is actually another Millennium Guardian. Kind of rude to call him a weird thing, but we duel him, and after defeating him, we secure the Millennium Rod, and get a visit from the memory of Merrick, who's just trying to live a new life after the events of the previous game. Heading back to Ishizu, and while we're talking to her, an earthquake happens due to Reshef's resurrection, so time is running out. She tells us the location for the next Millennium item, so +1 achievement for story progression, and then we're off to the Galapagos Islands. Here we find Mako and challenge him to a duel only for him to swiftly kick my ass. We don't actually have to beat him though, but it's looking like all my deck upgrading was for nothing. Weevil's also in the next area, and I thought it'd be a fun little callback if I decked him out again since he only uses forest monsters and he can't beat fire types. And I am so glad I can fast forward the emulator because with a field full of cards, it still took so long to get through each turn thanks to the permanent effect monster that he has. And it didn't even work because it turns out he does have different monster types in this game, so I actually ended up losing this duel anyway. I was able to defeat him on the rematch. He was a lot easier than Mako, not that it's necessary anyway, but I wasn't about to take that loss just now. Inside the ruins, we see the other Yugi. He snatched the Millennium item and wants us to fork over the other ones to give to Ishizu. Yugi suspects something is wrong, but like, come on man, this is obviously the Pharaoh. He's just the same old dude we know and love, nothing odd about that at all. He turns out to actually be the Mimic of Doom, yet another one-off anime antagonist who I didn't even know had a name until now. He challenges us to a duel over the Millennium items, and I guess he should have mimicked some better cards because I beat him incredibly easy. He drops the Millennium Scale as he runs away, and we learn that Pegasus is yet another victim of Reshef the Dark Being, and we have to save him as well. With the Millennium Scale, we now have 6 Millennium items, which gets us another achievement. Heading back to Ishizu, I expected to get the next god card, but somehow Slifer got turned back into stone instead. I didn't even get a good chance to use him, what a ripoff. Ishizu tells us she has to come up with a plan, and we should try to increase our duelist level in the meantime, as if I haven't been spending 10 hours grinding by this point. But before the next grind session, we can actually start a side quest back at the card shop where we find Duke and Serenity, who tells us that Tristan has been turned into a robot monkey. That's a pretty bold claim, but don't worry, I'm sure there's some rock solid evidence. See how the monkey and the dog get along? Well, Serenity once read that monkeys and dogs don't get along. Lucky is Tristan's dog, and it's getting along great with this robot. That's all the proof I need. Duke, did you hit your head or something? Who other reason can you think of? Ah, yep, that answers that. So we play along and head over to Kuiper Corp to get some information on these monkeys. Mokuba tells us that Kuiper Corp made them as toys, but they weren't selling well, so they dumped them all off on the Galapagos Islands. So we head there and find a bunch of them. Joey suggests dueling each one because Tristan sucks at card games, so the weakest one should be him. And why are these stupid monkeys so difficult? I lost a dozen times to these guys. First Rebecca, then the random rich dad, and now robot monkeys are the next challenge to overcome. I don't even think I have to defeat them for this side quest, but I am not about to admit defeat over some robot monkeys, man, come on. Eventually, I was able to beat them with a little luck and a good starting hand, but it took so many attempts that I'm starting to run low on anti-cards, so we definitely have another grind session coming up. Inside the ruins, we find one more monkey, and this one was incredibly easy to defeat, so it must be Tristan. Man, look at ya. How could Kaiba do this to you? Wait, what, Kaiba? Why are we blaming Kaiba for this? Would it not be because of Reshef or some other magical shenanigans? This whole side quest has everybody acting stupid. But it's finally over and we get an achievement for completing it. Oh, and it turns out Tristan was just getting some food this whole time. The monkey really was just a monkey robot that Yugi's grandpa was playing with. He does become another duelist though that we can farm in the card shop, but he didn't really give me anything good, so I don't think he's worth dueling. Before moving on, I decided to do the biggest grind session I've ever done. I mean it, I spent a good 2 hours this time. I grinded so much I even got an achievement for hitting duelist level 250. And I did some research into what are some of the best cards in the game, and I basically rebuilt the entire deck, but I'm really confident about this one. I picked up 3 copies of Fiend's Hand. These are basically a Beckon to Darkness but in monster form, so they're a little more versatile. Then I picked up a few Mammoth Graveyards. These guys power down every opponent's monster by 500 attack points, and they have decent attack themselves, so they're a really good card considering their low deck cost. They also get boosted by Witch's Apprentice, which I'm back to using since at this point I can't really avoid those permanent effect monsters just because they're inconvenient. The duels are getting harder and I need to use whatever good cards I have at my disposal. I got some more copies of Acid Trap Holes and Invisible Wires just to have 3 of each now that the other battle traps are becoming obsolete. And I picked up one more card which is the best card in the entire game, and I cannot believe I was not using it sooner. Dark Flare Knight. His effect is when he's in the graveyard, he summons a Mirage Knight to the field, so basically a free big monster, but you might be thinking, well, it's a high level monster, so it's not likely he'll be sent to the graveyard, and you would be right if not for the fact that in this game, you can actually discard any card to the graveyard whenever you want. So we can just throw him away, and then his effect activates, but that's not even the end of it. Mirage Knight is a pretty strong monster on its own, but on the opponent's turn, it splits back up into Dark Magician and Flame Swordsman. So we're basically summoning 3 high-level monsters for free. But wait, there's more! Because he's being summoned via a special ability, that doesn't even count as our normal summon. The only downside to this guy is the fact that he's limited to 1 per deck, but this is still easily the best card in the game. In fact, my deck is doing so much better now, I was able to defeat both the standard and the expert difficulty dual computers for another 2 achievements. So I don't want to jinx it, but I think we're finally done grinding and I can actually start to enjoy the game. So with that, we go to talk to Ishizu once again, and she tells us she's going to track down the Millennium Puzzle and wants us to go find Kaiba since his god card probably got turned to stone as well. So we head to Kaiba Corp and she was right, but Kaiba still wants to play the lone wolf, so he takes off to go find his own answers. While that was happening, the Neo-Ghouls have taken over Domino City, so now it's a perfect time to test drive this new deck, which was amazing. The only downside is I'm now using multiple monsters with permanent effects, so the duels are taking a lot longer, but that's what the fast forward button's for. Thank the god cards for that too, because honestly, if it wasn't for that, I would seriously reconsider making this video because this is insufferable. Most of the Neo-Ghouls are optional, we don't have to fight them. However, if we head north, we'll find this dork in a superhero costume trying to fight one. If we talk to him, another ghoul challenges us, and defeating him gets us an achievement for avenging the super nerd. Over by the area where Ishizu normally hangs out, we see Seeker harassing Esparoba and his brothers, so we have to challenge him to a duel to save them. And he's no match for my new and improved deck, especially since he still does not know how Exodia works. Esparoba tells us the ghouls have kidnapped Ishizu and Kaiba chased after them, so we gotta go rescue her, but the ghouls have taken over the train station too. So in order to drive them out of the city, we have to go recruit some other duelists to join the cause. So we have to travel back to all the areas that we explored so far where we find other duelists being harassed by the ghouls. After we defeat them, we can get our friends to come back to Domino. And I really like this part of the game. We see a lot of interactions between characters who have never interacted with each other in the anime, like Loomis and Umbra trying to recruit Weevil to the ghouls, or Mai dealing with Arcana. There's even some nice character development with Bones, who's coming to terms with the fact that Bandit Keith mistreated him and now he's standing up for himself. I don't know if this game is considered canon or not, but I really like how they portrayed these characters in this game. And each time that you recruit a duelist, you can see them patrolling a different part of Domino that is now ghoul-free. And the music is super epic, and even Takashi's out here defending his girlfriend against them. I mean, he's not doing a good job, but he's out there. This is like a Yu-Gi-Oh! War. It has no right to be this awesome. The last ghoul is in the city over at Kaiba Land, where the Big Five immediately switch teams and pledge their loyalty to the Neo Ghouls. So we'll have to defeat them in a duel, which by the way, I haven't lost a single duel yet since upgrading my deck. It's not like these guys aren't hard, but all the grinding is just finally paying off. And with the final ghoul defeated, we get an achievement for clearing them out of the city. Now I can hop on a train to deal with a few more of them who have hijacked a train. Man, the TSA is going to start making us check our Yu-Gi-Oh cards at this rate. This is the last time that we're going to have to ride the train, so defeating each of the 3 ghouls on board gets us that achievement for beating every duelist available on the train. At the Egypt exhibit, we see Kaiba taking a 1v10, and he's still sticking to his lone wolf bit and insisting that we leave him to deal with these guys while we go save Ishizu. If it was anybody else, I would think that they're crazy, but we leave him to go find Ishizu, who's being held hostage by Bandit Keith. He forces us to give him the Millennium items so he can use them to free the Egyptian god cards for himself. Unfortunately, he missed Ishizu's lecture about how the god cards are supposed to choose their wielders, and let's just say the Winged Dragon of Ra did not choose him. So we get our Slifer the Sky Dragon back, as well as the Winged Dragon of Ra, but before we leave, Reshef does some more magic shenanigans with Bandit Keith and takes over his body and makes him destroy the Millennium Puzzle. And before Yugi can pick up the pieces, the Paradox brothers swoop in and steal the rest of them, telling us to come find them at Pegasus's castle. They also kidnap Mokuba to give Kaiba a reason to chase after them as well, and he still refuses to work with us. Love him or hate him, he sure knows how to commit to a bit. A Millennium Guardian walks in and tells us we have to seek out a man named Paradox to find out where the castle is. And I thought for a second they were about to introduce the antagonist from the Bonds Beyond Time movie, but no, it's just this guy. He tells us that the Winged Dragon of Ra isn't in its true form yet, because while Slifer and Obelisk are ready to go out of the box, the Winged Dragon of Ra is a special little princess who needs to be woken up from her slumber by somebody who can decipher the ancient text on the card. So Ishizu tells us that we gotta go find Merrick in Egypt, which gets us another progression achievement. And we actually have another chance to get an achievement here if we duel Odeon before meeting Merrick. Odeon was one of the hardest duels in the previous game, and he's no pushover in this game either. He actually uses some decent trap cards, so I decided to play this duel a bit safe and wait until I had enough tributes for Slifer the Sky Dragon. Which ended up being the correct play because one of his traps was Torrento Tribute, which would have destroyed all my attacking monsters. But Egyptian gods in this game are immune to trap cards, so it's a good thing that I waited. And we got the achievement for defeating him. We find Merrick in his room and explain the situation, and he agrees to help us restore Ra to its true form if we can defeat him in a duel. And I thought I had this one in the bag. I still have not lost a duel up until this point, and I had a field full of monsters and took him all the way down to 100 life points, but on his next turn, he managed to turn it around so fast. I was using the double speed on the emulator, so it really caught me off guard. Literally one blink and I go from a field full of monsters to getting wiped out. So what happened? Well, first he had a Newdoria in the graveyard whose effect lets him destroy the strongest monster I have, so that took care of my Dark Magician. Then he used Monster Reborn to bring it back to his side of the field and destroyed my Flame Swordsman. Then he activates a second Monster Reborn? Judge? That card's limited, why does he get to use 2 of them? So he takes out my Trap Master with Flame Swordsman. Thankfully though, I know this game really well, so I still had everything I needed to win. I used the Toadmaster to destroy his Flame Swordsman since it has type advantage, then I attack his face down with Mammoth Graveyard, leaving him with only one monster on the field, so I use Fiend's Hand to take out the Dark Magician. He set the face down on his next turn, which ends up being a trap card that took out Toadmaster, but I was able to get the win with one more attack. So he almost had me there, that was definitely a close call, but after that performance, I think it's safe to say that I truly am worthy of Ra's true form. Well, I guess this is kind of true form, because he does have one more form, but there's an achievement for beating the game without using it, so we'll be skipping that for now. Speaking of achievements, we get one more for unlocking Ra's true form, and then head back to Egypt to go talk to Paradox. He tells us we have to catch him and defeat him in a duel for him to help us. So we need to walk along the Great Wall and defeat these Millennium Guardians who each give us a specific card that we'll have to remember later. These duels are a lot easier because these guys only start with 3,000 life points, so we just gotta go through all 5 waves and get to the end where Paradox quizzes us about the cards that we were given. This was pretty cool, but I wish they did more with it because all the questions were just figuring out the sequence based on their levels. I think it would have been cool if it was actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Trivia or based on the lore of the game. It honestly kind of reminds me about Grunty's Furnace Fun from the Banjo-Kazooie video. So all I have to do now is defeat him in a duel, and I started the duel with Dark Flare Knight, so I was thinking this is going to be another easy win because I have still yet to lose a duel up until this point, but I think I got a little too comfortable. I realized his monster had type advantage over mine, so I brought out Ancient Lamp to summon La Jin to attack it instead, but I attacked right into a Torrential Tribute which wiped out my field. This was a genuine misplay. I overextended and lost all my best cards in one blow. He got me down to 750 life points and I managed to hang on for a few more turns and even started making a bit of a comeback, but I was still only one attack away from defeat and eventually he got it. I just hope I don't have to reduel all the Millennium Guardi, and of course I do. Though honestly, if I wanted to, this actually wouldn't be a bad area to farm. They each give 2 prize cards each time for winning, one for the ante and then one for the riddle. In hindsight, I should have farmed here a bit, but I was so sick of grinding at this point, so I just wanted to continue with the story now that it's getting really good. I beat Paradox on the rematch, and he helped us by taking down the magic barrier shielding Pegasus's castle. And that gets us 2 achievements, one for defeating Paradox and one for getting access to the castle. At the castle, we gotta ride this cable car, and I want you right now to just guess what happens next. Do you think the cable car breaks and we come crashing down? Maybe Sol Shavosky makes an appearance? Maybe the power gets cut and then we're stuck here? No, the answer is D. A Pegasus-themed pickle bursts in and challenges us to a duel. I have no idea what this game is anymore. Yugi! I turned myself into a pickle! I'm Pickle Pegasus! Wubba-lubba-dub-dub! Oh, and Pickle Pegasus starts with 10,000 life points for some reason. As if upping the difficulty wasn't bad enough, this game decides screw it, the enemies also now get more health. Thankfully, the new deck is still holding up. I can tell the opponent's monsters are getting stronger, but I'm still winning no matter how many Pegasus Pickle the game throws at me. We finally get to the top of the castle and are greeted by Panic and the Mimic of Doom, who refuse to leave even after we beat them in a duel. And Joey steps up and actually stays behind to take them both on by himself so we can keep moving. And now we have access to the castle dungeon, which gets us another achievement. And in the dungeon, we find an army of Pickle Pegasuses being pep-talked by Sol Shavosky. So we gotta fight our way through them, and I gotta know, what kind of dungeon is this? We got the underground area, the lava area, the mountain area. This is basically the whole island right here. We eventually make it to the top where we find the Paradox brothers blocking our way, and again they refuse to leave after we defeat them, which I didn't realize was an option this whole time. Makes you wonder why they don't just do that every encounter. I mean, screw the card games, Bandit Keith had the right idea, just start taking hostages, you know? Like, not the backseat villain here, but maybe we don't go by the honor system and drop the Millennium items just because we win a card game. So Yugi stays behind to take on both the Paradox brothers, who for defeating we also get another achievement and we can now move on to the castle. Paradox tells us to proceed, we have to go through an endless labyrinth, and to light the way we have to get the 6 spirit cards from all of our fellow duelists. I misunderstood this and I proceeded to the castle where each door leads to another room with the Spirit of Bones who we can defeat again and again in a duel. I thought this was another situation where we got a duel waves of them to progress, but what Paradox meant was we actually had to go back to the areas we already explored once again, this time dueling all of our friends and receiving their ace card as a prize. Then we defeat their spirit in the labyrinth, and with the power of their spirit card we can expel them for good. So we have to journey around the world once again to collect these spirit cards from all of our friends by defeating them in duels. Which means we got another chance to take on Mako, and this time we were able to win. I was able to defeat everybody else just as easily, and then when it was time to fight their spirits in the castle, it was actually easier because here they all use this dark field spell like every other bad guy in the game. But their decks are built for a different field spell that they normally use. Mako's not so tough now that his fish are out of water. And we get an achievement for each duelist that we defeat here, so that's 6 more achievements towards our mastery. In the next room before the final fight, we see Kaiba battling a Pickle Pegasus, and I guess he didn't have to collect the spirit cards. I guess when you're Seto Kaiba, you can just screw the rules. Mokuba walks in under Reshef's mind control, and Kaiba doesn't want to duel against his own brother, so we duel in his place, and I pretty much one-tapped him with Slifer the Sky Dragon for the win. Hitting him so hard, he gets knocked back to his senses and breaks free from the mind control. Our reward for saving his brother is the honor of dueling Seto Kaiba for his God card, and he takes the L a lot more gracefully than I would have expected. So now we have all 3 God cards, and we get an achievement for defeating the Kaiba brothers. Before moving on to the final fight, there's also a little secret back in the castle where if we interact with this portrait of Shadi, we get another achievement, and the chance to hear some lore about how Pegasus got mixed up with Reshef in the first place. After his defeat in Duelist Kingdom, he did some soul searching and stumbled upon a stone tablet that Reshef was sealed in, and he thought he was using the God cards to seal him away for good, but he was being manipulated into doing the opposite without his knowledge. I was kind of hoping for an explanation as to why he's going by Soul Shavasky now, or maybe what's the deal with the pickles, but as long as we get an achievement, I'm happy. Now it's time for the final battle against Pegasus, or Soul Shavasky, or whatever he's going by. He explains that Reshef grows stronger with the spirits of defeated duelists, and so we have to face him in one final duel with the fate of the entire world at stake. And also this Karibo that I put up as ante. And I wish that I could say that this was an epic back and forth battle that tested my skill and knowledge of the game, but despite him having 20,000 life points to start, I guess he forgot to shuffle his cards because he went the whole duel only playing 2 monster cards. So, yeah, that's it. That's the final battle. At least I think it is. I sure hope there's not an even bigger bat about to fade in from the background. Uh-oh. Well, there he is, the big bad Reshef of Destruction. This thing looks like it's the size of a building and it can crush us to death, but instead it's gonna play a card game with us. And oh look, the Pharaoh's back, just in time for a super cool triple team Dragon Blast. Looks like Kaiba is finally a team player. And oh boy, I can't wait to see how much health this guy has. 40,000 life points! I seriously hit him with a fully powered up Slifer the Sky Dragon, and it barely makes a scratch. Honestly, I'm kind of over this whole give the bad guy a bunch of health thing that they're doing. Combine that with the fact that he has multiple copies of cards that are supposed to be limited, like Swords of Revealing Light and Pot of Greed, this duel went from a challenging epic final fight to just another grind session in disguise. Like, once you get a God card out, the fight's pretty much over. He doesn't really have a way to defeat them, but he sure as hell has a way to stall against you. Eventually, we wear him down and chip away the rest of his life points, and with that, we have now officially beat the game. Reshef tries to make one last-ditch desperation play by taking over Pegasus's body, but he tries to make a heroic sacrifice by telling us to seal him away before it's too late. And everybody is surprisingly on board with this. Like, nobody wants to entertain another way that doesn't involve banishing Pegasus, who was the victim here. No? Alright then, I guess we'll just blast him with the God cards then, sealing him away along with Reshef, and getting us 2 achievements in the process. One for beating the game, and one for doing it without the Winged Dragon of Ra's Phoenix mode. We rush out of the castle as it's crashing down, then hop on a helicopter to get the heck out of here. And that's the end of the game's story, but it's not the end of our journey because we still have some post-game content and achievements to wrap up. And there's actually some real post-game content too. Once you beat the game, you unlock the Hall of Eternity, which is a room full of antagonists, some of which aren't even in this game, like Noah Kaiba from the anime. We have achievements to collect here, but we're gonna come back to them. For now, let's clean up some easy ones, like entering in this code into the password machine, which gets us access to Ra's Immortal Phoenix mode. We just gotta go back to Egypt to talk to Merrick, and then he'll turn our God card into the most powerful form and gets us one more achievement. Ra's Phoenix mode works like Dark Flare Knight, where if it gets sent to the graveyard, it summons the regular Winged Dragon of Ra back to the field. And we can simply discard it from our hand to trigger this effect, so it's basically just a free God card summon, but that will become very important later. Next, we have to win a duel using Exodia, so we bully Tristan with our souped up late game cards and obliterate him for an achievement. And that just leaves the Hall of Eternity. There's an achievement for defeating each duelist here, and that is easier said than done because these duels crank the difficulty all the way to the max. Like, I am not exaggerating, the developers really went sadistic here. Each duelist has 60,000 life points, and they all have 3 Pot of Greeds, 3 Change of Hearts, 3 Harpy's Feather Dusters, just triple copies of extremely busted cards that we can only use one of. Some of them even have their own God cards as well. On one hand, I enjoy the difficulty. You actually have to think now, you can't just throw down your best cards or they'll get wiped out by a torrential tribute, which they're also running 3 of. You actually have to get a bit creative, like for example, I actually tribute summoned my Dark Flare Knight to bait out this torrential tribute so that Mirage Knight can get around it. On the other hand, I feel like giving them such nonsensically huge advantages makes it so the only way to win is to use the god cards who are immune to card effects. So the strategy pretty much just becomes summon a god card and win. Like, it's not exactly that simple. If you're not careful, they can beat a god card, like when Noah used 2 Change of Hearts to tribute summon a stronger monster, but situations like this were extremely rare, and the solution there is to just not summon anything else. In fact, a lot of the duels I ended up winning simply due to them running out of cards, because with 60,000 life points and the optimal strategy being just to use the god cards, sometimes duels just go on that long. Like, I'm so conflicted here. I've always said that I wish Sacred Cards was more difficult, and it really doesn't get much more difficult than this, but there's something just artificial about this difficulty. And the retro achievement developer is just as insane as the game developers because there's an achievement for defeating everybody in this room in one go without leaving. And just as a little cherry on top, I didn't realize this until now, but remember how your life points don't reset between duels? Well, I thought that I can use cards like Diane Keto the Cure Master, which gives you 5,000 life points, and then just bank life points to make this easier, but if you end a duel with more than 8,000 life points, then you do get reset back to 8,000 after the duel. So these guys can start with 60,000 life points, but I can't start with anything more than 8,000. I keep hearing people say that this game stacks the deck against you, and I cannot think of a better example of that. With our current deck, I was able to defeat each of the duelists here, so that's 9 achievements, leaving only 2 left. One of which is for getting to duelist level 500, which we're probably gonna have to do anyway to get a high enough level to make a deck that can beat everybody in one go. We do get some relief with this grind though, as defeating duelist here in the Hall of Eternity actually gives us tons more XP. Noah I found was the easiest to farm, and after a dozen or so duels against him, I was able to climb the ranks and get the achievement for hitting level 500. Then after some small deck adjustments to add more stalling cards, I was ready to take on the gauntlet. Starting with Noah, since I was the most familiar with him by now, I had a rough start because I have some useless weak monsters in here to make room for some better cards, and I drew into all of them to start with. But I did manage to draw into Raw Phoenix mode, and when that happens, it's pretty much a guaranteed win. So that's how I defeated him. Merrick's up next, and he uses Lava Golem, which summons itself to my side of the field and then inflicts damage each turn, but I was able to get rid of it by running it into one of his torrential tributes. A few turns later, I was able to get out Obelisk the Tormentor, and I almost made a huge mistake here because I got a little impatient and I used Dark Flare Knight so I can get some extra damage to speed things up, but when it split up into Dark Magician and Flame Swordsman, that gave him the opening to use 2 Change of Hearts to grab them both. Then he drops 2 Pot of Greeds to get into one of his 3 Swords of Revealing Lights, which prevents me from attacking. And that combo made it possible for him to get out his God card and run over mine. I thought this was going to be a loss. I was actually just about to hit reset, but I figured I have 10,000 life points, I can probably survive one turn, let's just see what happens. And it turns out he's actually out of cards, and I won the next duel due to him decking out. That was a very close call, and it just goes to show you that you have to be patient with this, because if I didn't try summoning that second monster, that wouldn't have happened. Yugi's up next, and his monsters are some of the strongest ones, and I had to be careful not to let him get 3 monsters out, otherwise he could summon Slifer. Thankfully I managed to avoid that, then I got Obelisk out, and that was enough to get the win. Bakura was next, and looking back I probably should have started with him because his deck uses Destiny Board, which is like Exodia, but the 5 pieces are trap cards, and in this game you only have to draw the first one, the other ones get activated automatically. The AI is stupid though, and they'll put down other face down cards, which blocks him from completing the set as long as I don't trigger those traps. So basically that just means I cannot attack with anything that's not a god card. So after stalling out a bit, I got Slifer on the field, and I know he doesn't use a god card, so I can just take it slow and steady. Eventually I got Harpy's Feather Duster, which wipes out all of his trap cards, and that got rid of his only chance of winning. Joey literally opens up with 3 Pot of Greeds, and I still can't get over the fact that these guys have 3 of these. You can't even use one of these cards in the real TCG. But I was able to get out Obelisk and take him out. I also defeated Kaiba using Obelisk, which is pretty funny considering that that's his god card. And I also defeat Pegasus with it as well. And Paradox, I literally opened with Raw Phoenix mode, so that's just a free win. Honestly, I wish there was more to talk about here, but these duels are pretty much just stall till you get a god card. Shoddy is our final opponent, and this one was the most stressful simply because it's a lot of stalling until I saw a god card. At one point I made a mistake where I was trying to attack with La Jin, but I didn't realize there was still a Swords Revealing Light blocking attacks, so I had to overextend a bit and lay down 2 trap cards to protect him, knowing that Harpy's Feather Duster would be a huge risk. But thankfully that didn't happen. I was able to get into my Winged Dragon Ra, which secured the win. And with that final duel won, we get the last achievement for beating them all in one go, and we have officially mastered Yu-Gi-Oh! Reshef of Destruction, making this my 6th mastery on retro achievements. Hoo boy, do I have some mixed feelings about this game. I love the story and the characters and the more expansive world compared to the previous game. All the RPG charm is here, and the new cards I do think make for some fun strategies as well. There's a lot of charm and a lot of fun to be had in this game, but man, do they make you work for it. I mean, it took me 34 hours just to get this mastery, and I say at least half of that was spent grinding the same few NPCs for XP just to have a fighting chance. If I ever do decide to play this game again, I'm definitely gonna check out the mods that fix some of these issues I had with it. Looking past the problems though, I really do think this game is a great sequel. I might want to come back and do some more content for this game. Maybe try doing the Hall of Eternity without god cards, that could be fun. If that's something that you guys want to see, let me know down in the comments below. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know the Sacred Cards video kind of blew up overnight, so there was a lot of pressure for me to make this video live up to that hype, and I really hope I succeeded in that. It was definitely my longest video. I've been working on this for almost 3 weeks in addition to the other videos I've been uploading each week. So I'm glad it's finally done, and I appreciate you guys being so patient because I know it's been like a month since the Sacred Cards video, and many of you guys were telling me that you wanted me to play this one next. Now that I've done these two, I'd love to know what other Yu-Gi-Oh games you guys want to see, so drop those suggestions in the comments down below. Even if you don't have a suggestion, I would still appreciate likes and comments because that's what helps the channel grow. That's the reason why the last Yu-Gi-Oh video did so amazing, and I'm hoping this video will do the same. So once again, thank you all so much for watching and supporting the channel. I'm seriously still so blown away. A month ago, I was making the Sacred Cards video and I had about 10 subscribers, and here I am now making this video and we just hit 4,000 subscribers. Seriously guys, thank you all so much for the love and support. And if you're new to the channel, I'm uploading a video just like this every week playing some classic nostalgic games, so make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And now that the channel's a bit older, we have 5 videos, so maybe check out those if you want something to watch in the meantime. I also have a Twitch channel, and I don't have the most consistent stream schedule yet, but it's always fun getting achievements live, so feel free to drop me a follow over on there. And if you want to see what games I'm currently working on, then feel free to follow me on Retro Achievements as well. A lot of you guys have been leaving me nice comments on my wall, and while I can't reply to them there, I just want to let you all know that I see them and I appreciate them. That's gonna do it for today's video. Once again, thank you all so much for watching and supporting the channel. And remember, if you're gonna try to take over the world using Yu-Gi-Oh cards, make sure you shuffle your deck first.
So there's this guy, Pegasus. He invented the Duel Monsters cards. He turns himself into a pickle. A pickle Yug. It's gotta be the funniest thing I ever seen.